Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Tuesday night Q&A. And it is Christmas for fantasy fans and for footy fans. We have got Gather Round upon us, and we are very, very excited. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And if you guys have got any questions or any players you'd like discussed, as always, leave it in the live chat or the live chat next to you, and we'll get to answering a heap of those. For those listening back to the pod, it is Tuesday, the 8th of April, a couple of days out from round 5, which is really, really exciting. But joining me is two of my co-hosts and fellow fantasy fanatics. It is Guesty and Jordox. So I'll start with Guesty. Guesty, mate, how are you? Are you keen to get over to Adelaide to see some good footy, mate?
I'm packed. I'm all packed. I'm ready to go. Got to head to the airport early tomorrow morning, get there tomorrow. I think, we're all catching up tomorrow pretty much. And then, looking forward to, it was awesome last year. So I really wanted to come along again this year and, really looking forward to seeing everyone. And, it'll be great. It'll be awesome. It was great. It was the carnival atmosphere and there was just so many people around that we knew. It was great fun. So, I'm there. Excited. Pumped. Jordox, I'm going to meet you in the flesh as well, mate. How are you? Oh, hang on. He's frozen.
Hey, great, boys. Yeah. Really excited. I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve. Can't wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's good because you guys are actually arriving at almost the perfect time. You guys are arriving within 10 minutes of each other. So we're picking you boys up and we'll go get some lunch. So that'll be cool. The first AFL Fantasy Fanatics lunch, which will be pretty good. So looking forward to that. And joining us is a good friend of the show. It is Free Kick Liam. Liam, mate, how are you? I know you're saying to us pre-pod you're not getting over to Adelaide, unfortunately, but you're keen for another weekend of footy, mate?
Yeah, look, I don't think so much it's Christmas for fantasy fans. I think it's more Easter. We can never figure out why it is at the time that it is or where it is. But, we'll take a bit of carnival atmosphere somewhere. Christmas is when the season opens, when round 1 starts, none of this opening round crap. That's Christmas. This is Easter.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense, mate. But in terms of the previous week, obviously, Jordox and Liam, we didn't get to obviously chat to you boys, obviously. So we'll quickly just sort of see how you guys went. So, Liam, I'll start with you, mate. How did you go this past weekend? I know that you had a good start to the season. Did that continue?
Alas, it did not. I scored a 1742. Just had a number of mid-prices fail this week. So Kane Farrell put up another 60. I'm sure he'll be someone we can discuss later. Joel Frazier, a very frustrating watch. Isaac Rankin, scoring what he did, just really didn't help me for the week. So I actually dropped back about 1,500 rank. So I'm now at 2,500. I'm 1 point ahead of DC. So I'm keeping track of that. But I still think my cash generation is pretty good. I think I'm still at rank like 2,000-ish for team value. So I'm definitely looking forward to attacking this week.
Yeah, back to best 22, which is going to be exciting or potentially people dreading going back to best 22 with a couple of newsworthy things happening. So a few players out, which we'll get into very shortly. But Jordox, obviously we didn't get to chat to you on Sunday night, mate. Obviously we could just have this whole podcast about saying how the Crows are robbed, but we're not going to do that because it's a couple of days removed. We're already moving on to Thursday night. How did your weekend go? How did your fantasy team go, mate? Because I think a couple of your boys you've sort of struggled with to start the season perform for you.
Yeah, no, it was a great week for me. Much better. Had a big jump in the ranks, so I'm getting 10K. So still got a fair ways to go, but I was very happy with the week, starting with Sam Walsh on Thursday night. That was quite delicious, and I nailed my captain Friday night. Just went with Bailey Smith. Pretty much because I had a big Saturday where I was driving and I wasn't going to be able to play the vice captain game. And once DeConning sucked on Thursday night, I just went with Baz Linker and quite enjoyed my Friday. And so it's a good round. Bring on the next one.
Beautiful, mate. Exactly right. So, but we will get into a few newsworthy topics, which we've got. We do have a couple of super chats, which we'll quickly get to before we start. So Tim Ashworth's got the first super chat. Thank you very much, mate. He's saying, who do I go? Frazier, Nod, I've already got Bison, got 27K. So, Liam, in terms of having Fraser and Nod, where would you be looking at going? I guess this obviously depends how many rookies Tim's got on field, but are you in favour of maybe going Fraser down and a Nod up, or the other way around? Where would you be looking at with these two?
Yeah, it really depends on
And before you
whether
do,
or not.
Sorry, Liam, just before you do, just to clarify, because someone asked in the chat, who is Nod? It's O'Driscoll from Fremantle.
Nathan O'Driscoll.
Yep.
So that question really comes down to whether or not you are already going to be fielding Riley Bice this week. I personally think that you can be fielding one of the Bombers rookies. If you've got Pryor or you've got Reid, they've got a Melbourne team that just allowed like a Geelong record 140 odd uncontested marks in a single game. If you can just swing him on field, then I do think that you have basically your pick of rookies. Or if you didn't get Moraes last week, I think his break-even's still pretty low. I think Caden Cleary is someone we know can score really, really well in the twos, and was going to be. My guess is he would have played all games so far this year if he hadn't had his drug indiscretion and missed 2 weeks and then been forced to spend 1 week getting his match fitness back in the twos. And then Tom Gross, I think it's okay to pick him, although I do question whether or not West Coast are going to be a team that'll churn and burn the bottom of their list. And then you can be, if you've got that kind of flexibility, I would be then looking to try and get a midfielder. So someone that's on my radar still is Will Ashcroft, who I definitely think can be a target for teams. I also think that if you are looking for someone that's still underpriced, I think Tim Taranto and the Fremantle mids are players that I'll be looking at.
Yep, I like that. Yeah, we'll discuss a few of those mids very, very shortly as well, because I think it's a good talking point with Nathan O'Driscoll out. So, but yeah, thank you very much, Tim, for this super chat. Hopefully that answered your question. DF sent through 2 super chats. First one, no question there, but I think he actually forgot to put it in there, but appreciate nonetheless, mate. But he did go here and saying, thoughts on Nod to Taranto and Fraser to Cripper. That's an interesting one. Jordox, are we just steering clear of Cripper at the moment?
I'm not sure. He must be cheap, but let's have a quick squeeze at him because he hasn't been on my radar, but I've been stuck with Walshy for the first few weeks. I don't see Cripper at the moment as a guy. Taranto's interesting because I started with him. I've been whinging about him to Bales every week and finally pops a ton, and now he's kind of interest to others. I don't know about either of those guys. I know their value, particularly Taranto, but I guess out of those two, Nod to Taranto makes more sense than the other part of it. What do you go?
Yeah,
what do you reckon, Buzz?
I like Nod to Taranto. I've been pretty keen on getting Taranto in potentially as a target this week. But obviously Cripper there, 919K, just dropped to 50, break even 130. I know that probably looking at the matchup, but I wouldn't be going there. If you've got 14K, I'd prefer a Lockie Neal, but even he's got some tags coming up. But other guys below that price, you could sneakily go Petrarca this week, knowing that hoping that he gets forward stats. It is a bit risky, so I'm not sure if I'd go there, but it is an option. Obviously, Liam did mention Will Ashcroft as well, who I also like. Horn Francis is one. If you don't have him, I'd even prefer a Chera over Cripps. But I think that the one, if you got Fraser, I think Tom Stewart is the guy that in defence, if you're going Fraser to Stewart, I think I'd prefer doing something like that to Cripper. So, but appreciate your super chat there, DF. Thanks, mate. And we got another one here from, actually, we've got a few. So we'll answer these in a set. We'll just go through a few of the key talking points. So Nathan O'Driscoll, who mentioned before, is 4 to 6 weeks out. So it is a syndesmosis injury, unfortunately. No surgery required, but he will be out for a little bit. So that is a must trade, unfortunately, with a good run coming up. That's just very unfortunate timing. We have some very exclusive breaking news on the AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Anonymous source from South Australia that's also on another pod, and it is not Jake from Hat Chat, is at the Barossa. There's like a show for Channel 9 with Eddie Maguire and that, and a heap of the guys are there, like Riley Thilthorpe and Tex Walker. Isaac Rankin is there. And the source asked Rankin about whether he'd be playing on Thursday night. And he said it's a corky and that he's touch and go, but he's confident that he'll get up. So from the horse's mouth himself, thinks that he will get up. So for anyone that's got him.
I've got some news for you. Isaac Rankin did an interview for the news. And as of 21 minutes ago, the video was posted saying exactly the same thing. So
okay,
I love the exclusive direct from the horse's mouth. It's great. There is also a publicly circulating video of the same horse saying the same thing out of said mouth.
We don't bring you on here to take Bale's moment away, okay?
So I'm really sorry,
just save that
I'm really
for
sorry
later.
to have to take you down.
Yeah, it's unfortunately Liam's internet
So
dropped out.
I've just been evicted from the chat.
Yeah. So not only were the Crows robbed, I was also robbed. So it's all good. Done.
Yeah, that was Bale's big
completely. That's quite funny. But yeah, so it's not an exclusive, but we will. I have said it. So there you go.
But just
I do like double confirmation of sources.
Yeah.
On the Rankin injury, it does feel like from all the rhetoric we've seen and the various journos tweeting their thoughts, it does have a big smell of he should be okay. The good thing is it's Thursday and we'll know before the round starts. But whether he plays or he doesn't play, I'm fairly certain he'll be named and he'll be in the squad until an hour before the game. So just have your plan B ready in case he is out, because it could still happen.
Yeah.
I would also just say that I wouldn't be targeting him this week as a result of that injury. I would expecting him to be getting some more forward time, possibly some longer stints on the bench. So again, if you are in the position where you don't have Riley Bice, it's actually really helpful for you because it does allow you to bring in that more expensive rookie and go, yep, next week there will be almost an artificially depressed top 6 potential option that can be a target for you once you get a better sense of how much this corked calf is going to impact him. I just wouldn't, I'm not personally expecting a big score.
Yeah, I'm the same. I wouldn't be, and could even play a bit more forward as well. That's the other thing that in this something to watch. So hopefully Isaac does get up. The other bit of news today was that Will Day is out for up to 4 months, I believe it is, or maybe it's 4+ months with another stress fracture in his foot. So really unfortunate for Will Day. Just last couple of years just hasn't been able to get that continuity and play, and it's a shame because he's a very, very good player, and that is a bullet for a few people that held him through the bye. And it's just compounded on that. So you got to move him and a Nathan O'Driscoll on. And it'll be getting very dicey if you've got a few other issue players in your team. But Liam, you'll be happy to know that Sam Taylor will be going for me this week. So,
Bales. And Bales, do you remember who I said you should have traded in for Sam Taylor last week and had him on field? Do you remember who I said? Geordie and I both said it.
Yeah. You said to bring in, I can't even remember who it was.
Riley Bice.
Yeah,
that would be.
Exactly. Yeah. Bloody Miami Bice. He was pretty bloody good on Saturday night, and that was awful. And literally all I had going through my head was you and Geordie saying, bring Bice in and pass on Marek for a week. But unfortunately, that's the way my year's going. So hopefully we can turn the tide around and get it go a bit better. Sam sent in a super chat. Thank you very much, Sam, mate. He's saying, which option is the best? So, Tim, I'll go to you for this one because I know you love the multiple option questions. So he's saying Nod and Fraser to Cleary from Sydney and Whitfield, or hold Nod for the week and trade to a DPP forward next week and do Hall and Fraser to Cleary and Brayshaw.
Yeah, I like the second one better, Cleary and Brayshaw. Look, I just think Brayshaw's still a little bit underpriced. He's dropped in price since the beginning of the season. We all kind of thought he was underpriced to begin for the season. He's got good matchups over the next couple of weeks as well. And then Whitfield, I mean, man, he's pumping along, but I just think you're kind of paying top price for him, whereas I'd still kind of prefer to be getting a little bit of value at this point in the season.
Yep, I agree with that one as well. Sucks you got to hold Nod, but I'd prefer the other trades there.
Just one thing, Bales. Would you not, I know, Guesty, I completely agree with you. You're paying top dollar at possibly the most expensive point in the season for Whitfield. Would you not consider, say, a Jordan Clark, for example, at a cheaper price, carry over some cash for next week, and continue to find cash generating options. So you're getting rid of Fraser, who you're starting to lose cash. Nod, who's not going to make any more cash for 4 to 6 weeks. Get them both out of your side. Still get the rookie and get an upgrade, but still try and find that value upgrade. I think that's what I would be doing in that scenario, as compared to trying to go all the way up to the top. Just because you have the cash doesn't mean you need to spend it. And cash next week is still going to be vital. We're going to see the biggest probably reshuffling in our teams based on DPPs.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd kind of throw back at you is, do you think a Clark is a keeper for the year? Because the other thing you'd have to factor in there is the trade out. Whereas, bringing in Brayshaw, I think you bring him in for the year.
I still think that, I think we'd say that Jordan Clark, I personally think he's under the blanket, under the top 6 blanket. He's not going to be a top 4, say, in his line. But I would not be shocked if he's going to end up in that 97, 98 range, which is typically where we see kind of that top 6 line sit for defenders. I don't think that you're looking to be trading him out. Or if you were, it's at the point where we're probably through most of the buys. Unless something's like I've got a complete misread on Fremantle, I do think that there is some regression to the mean for them on their marking. And I think that that's ultimately going to be something that'll benefit someone like Clark, who's already scoring pretty well, even in spite of the fact I think Fremantle are only averaging like 75 marks. I saw Vams and Mitch having a chat about this on Twitter as I kind of logged on after footy training just before this. So I personally think he's going to be close enough to top 6 that if you trade him in now, he's not going to be a priority trade for 2.5 months.
You know what's interesting too about Geordie Clark is his scoring. I haven't checked this, but I reckon if you go back and look at last year, his scoring this year is eerily similar to how he started the opening 4 or 5 weeks last year before he exploded. I might look that up just in case I'm completely wrong. But I feel like he had a whole bunch of 90s.
80s and 90s start last year, and then had
but then he blew up
like
when
120s and 150s.
Yeah, when him and Ryan went nuts.
Just to throw another one in there, well, since I want to get your opinion on this, Liam. What about a Luke Ryan?
Okay. So here's my thinking about why not Luke Ryan. The biggest issue at the moment afflicting Fremantle is the speed of their ball movement, and the biggest issue with that is Luke Ryan. Luke Ryan does not move the ball forward, does not progress with meters gained very quickly. And I think that Jordan Clark is the player that is most likely in that team to unlock it alongside. And so I see like a Shea Bolton, Jordan Clark, Dudley, who I think looked really, really good. I think that if Fremantle are going to be successful this year, they're going to, and this is something that Champion Data is now actively tracking and teams have vision of and numbers coming to them on speed of play.
Yes.
I think that Jordan Clark is the player most likely to unlock that. And therefore, I think he's a better target than Luke Ryan, who I think is kind of a luxury Stephen May. They will have some games where they'll score well, but I do think that the game is kind of, the way they play is a little bit antiquated.
Yep. Don't mind that. I guess we'll touch on the rest of defenders then. So obviously a few people looking at defenders this week. So obviously you've got your top price players in your Whitfield, Zorko, Sheasel. Then you've got like your Sinclair, Flanders and Nasai who are a little bit cheaper than that. Then you're sort of going down into the range of like your Max Holmes is getting some tags. Carl Amon's got a decent run after the Port game. The Freo guys we talked about, Bailey Dale. And then you've got your Tom Stewart and Dan Rioli sort of under that 850. Liam, is there sort of one that you mentioned Jordan Clark as one you don't mind, but is there any of those other guys that you'd pencil in? Obviously, you mentioned as well that paying up for these guys at the top price, so even if she's right, still priced at 110. Like all those guys are well over 110, and maybe it's not the time. Is there a guy that you like maybe below there that you'd prefer, or do you think there is a world where you could pay up for a Sheasel, for example?
I think Sheasel, I wouldn't be trading into him unless I hear from Clarko this week in his press conference talking about, because I would assume that this is something that will get discussed, his shift in role. I'm not trading him in unless I hear more about, we've given him license to drift further behind the ball, because it was in that, I think it was the first and second quarter where he did do a lot more of that, where he was scoring really, really well. It's when I hear that I'd trade into him, because I think that if you don't have him, last I checked, I still think he was at near 50% of the top 1,000 have Sheasel.
Yep. What about the guys below that? You sort of keen on any of those other ones, or?
Like, I think that if you wanted to go for Sinclair, I think, again, I mentioned this last week, his DPP flexibility, he's one of few players that actually has that I do like. Bales, I heard you mention Tom Stewart. I don't love it. I think that is a recipe for potential disaster. Like, he was sore last week. He missed part of a quarter.
Yeah, you could tell that when a couple of times when he came down, particularly after the one with Bailey Fritcher nearly tunneling him. But there's a few times where I could see him sort of grab towards it. So I think it's a pain tolerance thing at the moment. And maybe it is a bit risky. Maybe you wait a couple of weeks. I'm hopeful that it goes well, because we just got some very interesting bits in the chat at the moment. So I think that's why Tim is giggling away there at the background. So some interesting things happening there. What about Lawson Humphries, Liam? Is that, or Dan Rioli, one of those two guys? 'Cause I guess they're the other ones that if Stewart's a bit risky, do you prefer one of those two guys?
I love Lawson Humphries. One of my he's rapidly becoming one of my favourite Essendon players not to watch. To watch, like non-Bombers players to watch. I just think he's immaculate and he seems to score well irrespective. But I'm not confident in saying that he'll be close to top 6. And I do think that there will be some games where he will probably get some more attention for his kicking ability. I haven't heard it updated in a couple of weeks, but Hoyne 2 weeks ago said that since he came in, he is the highest rated kick in the AFL. Right. Soon enough, teams will start to have to pay attention structurally to what he does. So I'm not confident that he's going to be top 6. And that kind of echoes, Tim, your question from earlier about if you're trading in someone at that level, how happy are you to consider a trade out for them in 2 months? Rioli looked great. I still think that he's going to be a meters game player by foot and not necessarily by hand and with disposals. I think that he could be someone, if you're playing super coach, could be more value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people probably looking at that 113 and going, it was a big score, but he had like a 51-point last quarter, I believe, as well. So that's probably inflating that a little bit. But yeah, a few interesting names to consider in defence there. We do have another couple of super chats coming through here. So Kobe Pemba has got this one, just also paying for Sam's question above. There you go. So the same sort of question there. So we answered that, but appreciate the super chat there, Kobe, mate. Hopefully we're able to answer that question for you. What have we got? We've got a big one here from Joshua James Taylor, Josh the One. So thanks, mate, for the big super chat here. Saying he's got Day and Nod. Who should he be going? So Jordox, obviously, it's a bit of a tricky situation if you've got both of them in there. How would you be going about it? Is it sort of you'd go Nod down and Day up? Do you try and maybe look for two guys in the sort of cheaper mid-price range? Where would you be going if you had both?
You know what? I reckon, Josh, you've given us a really big one there. Why don't you put in the chat just a few more things about your team, just a bit of an idea of who you've already got. Right. Like if you don't have Bice, that's a pretty clear place to jump for one of them, and then you go up with the other. I feel like I'd be giving a pretty generic answer, and for $20, I think you deserve a bit more detail. So just give us an idea of some of the main guys you've already got or who you're looking at.
Well, a couple that I'd probably suggest is you could look to go down to a Marriage, and then maybe you could get Day up to someone like a Will Ashcroft. I also, once again, I'd love to hear Liam's thoughts, but Nevitt's coming back this week. I know we're always a bit scared of Geelong, but prior to him starting to have a few issues with his feet, I was pretty hot on him.
Look, I was similar, and then Fantasy Freako released that stat about the fact that he has the highest effective tackle rate. I can't remember if it's Geelong or in the competition. So if he tries to lay a tackle, he was getting them. My only query on Nevitt is the fact that, and I can't speak to this personally, but my girlfriend Eloise has had plantar fascia issues. They are not a quick fix. They can be persistent. It depends on the quality of your deloading. It does give me some cause for alarm that that's the issue that they flagged. And you combine that with what happened, well, the Geelong element of it all and the Chris Scott element of it, that I just am a little alarmed by that. The fact that he could come back as a sub or possibly a sub-out candidate if he comes off with any kind of fit issues, any pain. I don't love it.
No, he couldn't go there. You're just handing Chris Scott more power to screw us over, and I guarantee you he will at some point. Josh has said, looking at Marek at the moment, he has bias. Yeah, Nevitt or Marek is probably what I'm looking at. I mean, I don't know. I feel like
I like Marek. Yeah, Marek's the guy I'll be going. So yeah, nod to Marek, and then Will Day. Depends how much cash you've got, Josh. I like Taranto at 8.96, coming into a good run. He struggled early, but had 30 touches in round one against Carlton, and those normal first games are pretty low scoring. Then 70 against Port, where they just hogged the ball the whole game, and Richmond didn't score anything. Then 84 against Windhager, I believe, with a tag there, and then he scored a 102 against Brisbane. He's not going to be the 115 Taranto that we have seen in the past in this Richmond team, but I think he's a guy that can average around the 100 mark, maybe go 105 probably as a ceiling. And I think you get near 10 points of upside. I prefer him, I think, over a couple of those other guys a bit cheap. But if you can get up to one of those Freo guys, I like them.
And what about going down to a kid and then the other one right to the top?
I'd be still trying to look for value, I think. I don't necessarily know who the midfield rookie would be. Maybe Caden Cleary's the one in the forward line if you've got some DPP, but a lot of people have got just two forwards on their bench. So maybe next week they'll be able to do the DPP. But I think Marek is a good one to bring in, I think, and you'll make a bit of cash and replace Nod as that cash generator, Tim.
So on that, Bales, like you just mentioned DPPs, right? You're probably a bit more across it than I am, but I mean, we're probably going to be looking at a few changes, like a Connor Stone getting a defender, defender. Sam Layla will probably add forward as well.
Yep. So Levi Ashcroft as well. Finn O'Sullivan will get defender status.
Exactly right.
So then you've got a few guys.
There's going to be a lot of movement.
There's going to be a lot of shifting around with these rookies. So it's one of the things that I've kind of been considering about this week is just making some moves that leave me options for next week, just because we're going to be shifting some of these DPPs around.
Will Ashcroft screams value there because he's also looking like he might get forward status. So
Will or Levi?
Both.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Levi. I didn't think Will would, but
Will was over 30. I think he was at over 40% last week. I haven't seen the updated stats for this week, but he was not a full-time midfielder last week. He's still rolling in off a half-forward line. So,
yeah, number 4.
If he hasn't got any cash banked, I'd be going Will Ashcroft. I think if it's like 50 or 60K banked, you can get up to a Caleb Sarong from Will Day if you picked marriage. So that's where I'd be. Those are the options I'd be looking at.
Yeah, like it. We've got a super chat here from Jay Sauzia. I hope I've got that. Apologies, Jay, if I haven't got that correct. But he's saying, what do we think about Sanders and Taylor to Horn Francis and Nasiah? Or should I be going for Zorko, Whitfield, Rankin, or should I be getting rid of Petrarca? So firstly, I wouldn't be getting rid of Petrarca. There's a chance obviously he gets forward status. You can maybe look at it next week if he failed again and didn't get forward status, but it's looking likely that he will. We talked about Rankin before, that we wouldn't be looking at him this week, just with this cloud over him at the moment. But Liam, obviously, going as Zorko Whitfield, you would prefer going a Nasiah. And then what are your thoughts about Horn France? Because I know he was someone that I don't know if you traded him, but you were looking at moving him last week. Is that the trade you'd go, Horn France and Nasiah?
Of those options, yes, that's where I'd be going. Just because I think that there's potential value in both of them. If you haven't had Horn-Francis so far, congratulations. You haven't lost the cash that the rest of us have. I don't mind doing those trades. And I like the fact that Sanders is a trade out because I think that's more of a pop score than it is something reliable.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you thought, just before we wrap up that question, Liam, mentioned before about these DPPs, we might have Petrarca, Chad Warner, maybe Will Ashcroft, a few of these guys. Is there a case to be made that maybe you don't go Horn-Francis this week? Maybe you wait and see who gets DPP and then you look at it. Or do you just go Horn-Francis is a bit of value, you jump on it and you sort of deal with whoever gets forward status next week?
It really depends then on how comfortable you are with your players on field in the forward line. Because Sanders and Taylor are out, so it's a forward and a defender in. I'm currently rolling with a forward pre-trades in my midfield, so I'd be in a position to be able to do some flicking around. If so, then I think Will Ashcroft is still where I'd be looking, albeit, and I've talked about him as a target the entire time. It's obviously a case of that great Richmond matchup has already passed, but I still think they've got a good month upcoming, and I think that he's only going to improve as he gets more minutes into his legs. If that's something that you can do, I would almost prefer that to a Horn-Francis.
Yep, don't mind that one. Just before we move to, obviously there's a heap of questions here and plenty of chat, interesting and also lots of questions there. But I just want to touch on the midfield because that's obviously where a lot of people are potentially looking at going this week. So I'll go around the room just very quickly. So Liam, I'll start with you. So we've got a heap of options that are all of value. So you've got the likes of, so you could even start at your a few guys that obviously we've already mentioned, but you've got your Andrew Brayshaws, Tom Green, and Sam Walsh are the guys, I guess, over $1 million there that a few coaches are looking at. Then you even go a bit down. Obviously, Dacos is probably one I'd put to the side for the week. James Jordan this week, maybe look at him starting from next week. You mentioned Caleb Sarong there as well. Then you keep going down, like Lockie Neal has got a decent run still coming up. People that don't have a Clayton Oliver is still there. Tim Taranto, Christian Petrarca, Will Ashcroft, and a more mini Petrarca if he gets forward status. There's a heap of guys there. Is there maybe 2 or 3 guys, Liam, that you would prefer from that group?
I have been looking at both of the Fremantle mids, just because I think that there is some, as I was saying earlier, regression to the mean on the Fremantle game style and the number of marks that they're having. They're the 2 that I like most out of that crew. It's an absolute pity that Jai Caldwell is out with injury because he would have been an absolute target for me with Essendon's upcoming run. It's a pity that Merritt has almost popped a little too high. In spite of his extra forward time, I think that would have been another option I absolutely would have considered. And I do think, though, that I would be avoiding Lockie Neal. I think that's a big concern. The one player I kind of wanted to throw out to everyone, Will Day out. What do we think about John Newcomb? Average of 96, pretty much.
Tim?
Coming off, he's had a 142.
Just don't. Burned me so bad last year. I couldn't do it. But look, just highlighting something that Liam said, that Essendon run for inside mids, they do not have even a slightly difficult matchup between now and their bye in round 16. It's such a shame that Caldwell's out. I mean, I've even been thinking about Merritt, but I just can't pay up. But that run is immense.
Yeah. Is there a couple of names there, Tim, that you like? Obviously, you've been keen on a Brayshaw and a Tom Green last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So looking at them.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've kind of, for me, I kind of land on Brayshaw. We've talked about this before. I mean, just primarily Richmond, Melbourne next to, and just because, how hot I was on him in the preseason, although I didn't pick him. I think also up there you got Sarong, although I'm concerned about him getting tagged. Green, I'm once again a little bit of a tag concern, and just can be a bit handball happy as well. Oh, they're probably the top three for me anyway.
Can I throw another name out there? He's not a midfielder, but he will get some DPP next week, and that's Nick Martin.
Yeah, I don't mind this with their run. Would you be launching Liam this week with the 140 break even, or would you be waiting a week or two, see him get forward status, hopefully, and then launching maybe next week or the week after?
I think that if you are sitting in the position where you want to capitalise on that Essendon run, Guesty put it as good as I could ever do. He's the player that is underpriced. As much as, you could get him next week, that Melbourne team is inconsistent, to put it kindly. And as a result, I think that basically at a flat 1 mil, he is value, whether or not it's as a defender or as a forward. Or as a midfielder, to be honest. Like, I still think that he's going to run close to 104, 105.
Yeah, he's just had a couple of tough matchups in Adelaide and Port Adelaide. So I do like that shout. And he's someone I've been circled for a couple of weeks, but you could potentially launch in early. And Jordox, to wrap up the midfield chat till we get to a heap of questions and keep flying through them, is there a couple of names that you like? Maybe Tim Taranto or Sam Walsh?
Yeah, well, I've already got them. I wouldn't recommend either of them, but yeah, Taranto under 900 is appealing, but I don't know. The points at Richmond are just going to be so hard to find. We finally saw them get a couple of tons for Taranto and Hopper, and it was just a low ton, and that was it. I'll give you a couple of names, and they're both Adelaide players because I'm just so pumped that I'm coming to Adelaide to see my boys. So I'm going to give it two of them a pump up. One is Jake Saligo, who I was a bit worried about on the weekend. I thought he might struggle a little against that Gold Coast midfield, and I just wondered when his scoring would maybe dry up. 943K. I just think he's safe as houses. He's gone 3 tons and a 90 now. And the other one is, I've found this year so far, it's really hard to find a defender that you want or like that isn't over a mil. So, I've started with Holmes, and that's been, okay as the cheaper guy, but there's just such a gap, I think, in the market between, say, 850K and a mil. I've got one for you, and he's not a defender yet, but he will be Sunday night, and that's Rory Laird.
My boy.
Yeah.
I mentioned
so he's
Sunday.
He's down 61K.
Mini Monk shut me down pretty quickly, but as we said to him, there's no Rory Laird slander on the pod, mate. So talk him up.
Well, look, he's 61K down on the starting price. He's gone a ton, 80, a ton, and then a 60 subbed out just because it was a bit warm. And anyone who started Laird a few years ago for that round 1 game against the Giants knows Lairdy doesn't like it when it's hot. So I think that 60 last week is just a blessing, just drops his price. And I think he's safe to be a 9,500 guy from here at 950K for your backline.
Yeah, I'll wait obviously 1 week and see him obviously get defense stats, which we know will get, but also see him drop hopefully a tiny bit. Their run does the run. Hey?
Does he go big break even?
128 break even. So with that, 60,
well, that's fair.
I'd probably almost wait 2 weeks because he's got Giants in round 6. So if you're looking at it, I think round 7 is one to potentially look at there. But their run is a bit up and down towards the bye, but I do like the shout of Rory Laird, which comes as no surprise to anyone at all. We do have another super chat here from Skills at Cap, so thank you, mate. So Liam, thoughts on SDK to Travalia or Bo Allen? I'll just cross out Bo Allen unless he's named, but I think we're going Travalia over him. And nod to Rao. Already have Rosie, Dawson, Oliver, and Brayshaw in the mids, and have already got Bice. So Skills of Cap, appreciate you letting us know like you've got those players there. It does help with the question. So Liam, what are your thoughts with the trade thoughts there from Skills of Cap?
I'm nixing Bo Allen as well and saying that it's Travalia or Sardell Hawley. Obviously pending teams and whether or not we can certainly be a sub. I think the injuries that the Bombers have had So Edwards out and Caldwell out may actually open up a spot, but we do have Perkins and Sardis coming back. I query Rowell. Like, I do like it. I think he's added many more marks to his game. He had 5 2 weeks ago, which is the most he's ever had in his career. And I think he had 2 on the weekend. So, things are looking up. I think he's never averaged more than 2 in his career. I just don't think that we're going to see a Matt Rowell that pushes top 8. I think that if you're paying up that much, I'm personally going Caleb Sarong before I go Matt Rowell.
Yeah, he's 995k. Like he's getting up there, obviously with a good start to the year, and so 74 on the weekend. I think he will be very up and down, as you say, Liam. With the games where we're getting the marks, he'll go well. I guess that his skills of caps probably look at the next 2, but then the following 2 after that is Sydney and Brisbane. So a couple of tricky games there, even though he's got a couple of good ones. So, yep, I would agree and look for another one there, but I do like it there. So Tim, obviously just saying in the chat there that he does have to head off, but it's very good because I didn't think Tim was going to jump on tonight, so we appreciate him jumping on for a little bit. But Guesty, mate, as we let you go, obviously it'd be good to see you tomorrow, mate, but where can the people find you across the socials?
Tim Guest AU, and then probably on the hill at Adelaide Oval.
Yep, exactly. And I will mention it again later on, but obviously us 3, including Guesty, will be at the Black Bull on Friday afternoon with the Hat Chat boys. So if you want to come and see all 3 of us, then make sure you head over. But thanks, Tim, for jumping on, mate. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you tomorrow and hear from you soon.
See you guys. Best of luck for this week.
See you, Timmy.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
Guesty. Beautiful. Thank you to Tim there. So we'll fly through a heap of these questions. So what I'll do is, because there's been so much chat there, just re-chuck in your question into the bottom of the chat to make it easier, and then we'll go from there. So I'll go to the first question from MJ. So Jordox, MJ, stuck with Fraser for another week. Do I field him or go with a Reed or a trainer? So I'm actually really keen to get your thoughts because I'm in this bit of a predicament. So Fraser has got Brisbane at Norwood, and then you've got a Zach Reed who's got Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval, which obviously we saw what the Geelong defenders did. And then Luke Trainer has got Freo, but it is at, I think, Barossa Park. So not with a bit of an unknown there. Could you field one of those 2 over Fraser, the first question? And if you were, who would it be?
If you were, who would it be? I don't think I could. Maybe Trainer. I feel like he's the one that, regardless of how the game goes, he's going to be involved. Whereas Reed, I just feel like Reed scares me. He had that good one a few weeks ago, but his both of them, yeah. No, I'll just stick with Freo. I know he was awful last week, and he's been trickling downward since the impressive round 1. But I think he's a good player, and he'll bounce back with a better score this week at least.
Yeah,
I'm in the opposite. I'm fielding Reed over Trainer. Trainer scored a 33 already this year. Zach Reed, on the other hand, his scores have been 63, 51, and 83. We're really talking about a player where if you're fielding him at D6 and you've already got Bice on field at D5, no one's expecting anything huge. Fraser's role, I maintain, and I don't know how Bevo doesn't see it, he is not a crashing player. He's not good at crashing in to the stoppage and running as a 4th midfielder from half back or half forward. And whilst he plays that role predominantly and not in at CBAs and then resting off half back as a pure half back, I do think that his scoring is capped. So I'd be fielding, and if I'd been in a position where I was holding Fraser, I would have been fielding Reed.
What do you mean his scoring's capped?
He's scoring capped because he doesn't actually get to enough stoppages. Like, the way that he plays when he rolls in, like, the only disposals or points that he's getting from those spots, if he does get to the stoppage centre bounce or some of those stoppages before it leaves, is a handball, receive and a kick. It's 3 points. He's not tackling. He's sitting at that uncomfortable distance away from the stoppage where we've seen Noah Anderson when he's had his bad scores. It's because he constantly sits on that second layer and the second layer of midfielders, and he's never looking to tackle. Fraser was in a similar spot last week and the week before. I don't love that.
Yeah.
I don't love his scoring in that role, particularly
No,
against
look,
Brisbane, who we've seen move the ball the way they do.
Yeah. I don't know. I just see a guy, he had 28 touches a few weeks ago versus Zach Reed, who's essentially a fullback. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. We shall see.
Yeah, that, and I'm probably going Reed over Trainer this week if I'm doing it, but I'm tossing up Fraser or Zach Reed. I'm actually keen to hear what Jake's thoughts, so I have to ask him over the next couple of days when I see him to get his thoughts on Fraser. But very, very good points there. And MJ, I'm stuck in that same boat, mate. So, yeah. Aiden Freeman says, was going to go Sanders to Brayshaw, but now I've got to trade at Nod, and I don't have the cash to get Brayshaw anymore, but can get in Max Holmes and trade SDK to a mid-primo. Is Holmes a top 6 defender? So, Liam, what are your thoughts on bringing in a Max Holmes who 2 of the first 4 weeks has copped a tag, and he's got, from looking at it the other day, I don't think Geelong have necessarily got a great run coming up either. So they've got the Crows this week, which won't tag. They're a tricky matchup, particularly Adelaide Oval. But then they go Hawthorn, potential Finn McGuinness, Carlton, potential George Hewitt. Collingwood have shown they can tag with Steel Sidebottom. Then they got Bedford. Then they got Port Adelaide. And then it opens up a bit after round 11. So is that enough for you to scare you off of a Max Holmes? Look,
I don't believe that half of the tags you've listed there are taggers that will go to Max Holmes, because I think Tom Sparrow. And this is something that I want to actually correct the record on this one. Just a reminder, everyone, Melbourne do tag. Alex Neil-Bullen tagged Nick Dacos within an inch of his life and injured him because it was so strong. And Tom Sparrow has been told, and we've heard this, that is his role. He's going to try and play the Alex Neil-Bullen role. And I went back and looked at this. Tom Sparrow is a top 5 in the time trial type of player. That is the only type of body that you can run with Max Holmes, given his speed and his endurance. George Hewitt is not that player. George Hewitt's not going to tag Max Holmes. James Jordan, absolutely, that's a massive concern. So that's just one thing I wanted to say, just on tags for Max Holmes. I think that if he's the best that you can get to, I'm totally okay with it. I think he'll get close enough by the end of the season to that top 6 blanket. I just don't know if now is the perfect time to do it. I think that Adelaide present a concern for his scoring because of the ball control that Adelaide have managed to employ at the moment. That's where my greater cause for alarm is. And I think that GWS, I think that Toby Bedford is, again, the type of high endurance, high time trial finisher that can tag him. It's once they get through that run where I'd be looking at him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at him potentially like after from round 11 onwards, I think. So Skills Cap was saying, I'm only getting Rao for 2 weeks and then out. The thing I'd be saying about that Skills Cap is I wouldn't be doing that, because we've seen this week with the amount of issues that have come up for a lot of coaches. Coaches are still holding players like maybe a Hollands or a Perryman or a Sanders, and then they've got Nod, Will Day, guys that they're on top of. And also in 2 weeks' time, we will be in upgrade season at that point, and you don't want to be trading out a guy you're bringing in for essentially $1 million. You want to be getting a guy that you're happy to keep until at least the mid-season buys, if not potentially the season, if they don't get injured or anything like that. Next question we'll go to is Skills Cap's got another one here. So Jordox, thoughts on Zach Merritt? Is it a big no because of the price, or with the good run, could you pay up? He's priced at $1.11 million.
Yeah, that's a very spicy meatball. I'll be honest, I thought this could be a bit of a regression year for Merritt in pre-season, not because of him as a player, but more of Essendon's needs and possibly seeing him move around the ground a little bit. But with, I guess, the Caldwell injury, they probably can't afford to do that, even with the great Sardis returning this week, Liam. But no, I don't think he's worth 1.1. I mean, he's got 96, 138, 108, And that 138, I mean, that was one of the best
One of the best
individual
games I've seen
performances
for
you'll
someone
see this year. But he did kick 4 goals, and he's not going to do that very often. So, you know, I love Merritt. We've all had Merritt in our side most years, but every year there's a point where he becomes a little cheaper in his value, but that's not right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably a bit too expensive. Liam, you in agreement with that? Obviously being the Bombers man.
Yeah, it's just a case of timing. He's a bit too expensive to be trading in this time of year. Just because you have the cash doesn't mean you need to spend it. You want to be continuing that upgrade cadence every single week and not settling for something where you're really concerned they'll need another trade potentially within a month. Saving where you can, just hitting the targets that you like, that you think that are either massively underpriced and can tide you over for 8 to 10 weeks, or are keepers for the rest of the year and just slightly underpriced. Merritt, probably going to be a great player for your team. Has a great run. I'm not going to shy it away if you've banked a swath of cash and you've got maybe still 200k left over if you trade in Merritt. I know that there are going to be a lot of people that will have a lot of cash this week because of the double downgrade possibilities last week. It's just not one that typically I'm looking to target at this time of year.
Yeah, as you say, Len, this is at the point where values at its most, players are priced almost at their highest in terms of magic number, and will slowly start coming down over the next few weeks. But yeah, this is when it's really high, and it's probably too much money to be paying at the moment, because if you go to Merritt this week, great, you got a good player, but then you're probably sacrificing the upgrade you want next week or the week after. And as you say, the upgrade cadence, you want to continue that, and you don't want to be sort of settling for a guy that you might not necessarily want, but he's the best you can get to. You want the guys that are underpriced, and keep bringing those guys in over the next few weeks. Chris says Fraser and Nod to Bice and Sarong. Thoughts? Well, tick. I think from all of us, Fraser to Bice is good, and Nod to Sarong. If you're keen on Sarong, he's got a good run coming up. So all ticks from us. DJ, is Marek a must-have? Do you think he can beat F6 for a while? So I wouldn't say he's a must-have, but Jordox, thoughts on bringing... we talked about Marek a little bit before, but thoughts on Marek bringing him in at F6?
Yeah, no, I still like him. I reckon if you were going to do it, you had to do it last week. Because from this point on, whatever he does, you've already made cash from last week. And if he is a bit of not a flop, but if he's underwhelming, at least when you jump off him, you've made the cash. And I think last week was the time to do it. Having said that, still bullish on him. I still think he's got a great role, and he's going to score fine, and he's great value. So, yeah, I'd certainly do it. It's something I'm looking at myself, but I wouldn't be anywhere near saying he's a must-have at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I still think this is probably the last week I'd prefer to get him if you're going to get him. But yeah, so he's getting to a point where you're probably, if you're getting him in, if you think he can go 75 plus, I think you can still go there. But if you think he's going closer to 70, maybe a little bit less, I think you've probably missed a bit of that cash gen. But I did like that hopping out of the square when he hopped out there. So that was pretty good. I know for a fact that if that does come up in the review, the coaches may think otherwise. So, yeah, just
we nailed the kick. It's the end of the day. He nailed the
he's got
kick,
it.
so
yeah. Jack Moan's got super chat here. Thank you, mate. So he's saying, all right, what should I fix? Got Fraser down to Bice, and I can go Farrell up to Whitfield, or fix rookies like a Campo, O'Sullivan, Boxall, or a Lindsay. I would say with Lindsay's a test this week, and it's sounding positive that he could play. Obviously, there's a chance he misses, but I think worst case he's back next week, so I wouldn't be looking at trading him. But he also followed up, Jack, with the second super chat saying, so who do you go for Nod? So he's obviously got Nod there. So I think Nod and Fraser would be the two. Liam, I think you'd agree with that you would go. Is it Fraser to Bice and Nod up? Is that what you're probably looking at there?
Yep. That's where I'd be going. And again, we've talked at length about the midfield options. I think there are at least half a dozen that you could be trading in, where I'd say it's at least a 50-50 chance or better that it'll be a good trade in for the next, basically up until round 12.
Yeah. And if you had to pick a midfielder, I guess from Brayshaw's price down, if you had to pick one, who are you going?
I don't mind going Brayshaw. If you've got that kind of cash, I do not mind doing that play whatsoever. I'm personally not looking at many trades where I actually have that much cash, which is why I've been hot on Sarong and Will Ashcroft. But one of those three, I don't think you're going to be complaining.
Yep, I like it. We'll go a few more questions. We're nearly at the hour mark, so we'll go to around there, and then we will we'll wrap up. Matthew Salt, who's a better upgrade target with their run coming up, Brayshaw or Merritt? So we were talking about Merritt before. I think we'd be going Brayshaw for a little bit more value with him. Porter Dennis, I'm very hot on Luke Ryan. Talked me out of it. His next 5 games are against teams, he averaged 127 against last year. He's priced just below 90. So Porter Dennis, I think we mentioned Luke Ryan before, so I guess I'll try and talk you out of it and say that he's averaged 127 against those teams. A lot of these teams were when that they were chipping it round and just taking the piss. Like essentially just Luke Ryan to Jordan Clark. They'll both go on essentially 110s, 120s. The game styles changed. Their marks are completely down. I think their marks will go up slightly. I don't think it's going to be to a point where Luke Ryan and Jordan Clark are going to be going and scoring these 120s, 130s on that regular basis like we saw in that stretch. So I wouldn't be looking at him personally. But if you're really hot on him, then I guess you can go there if you're really keen. Jeff saying nod to either George Hewitt, Noah Anderson, or Caleb Sarong Jordox. I think George Hewitt, tip of the cap for anyone that started with him. Don't think you're trading into him now. You've missed the cash gen and the 4 tons already. So Noah Anderson's a player we haven't really touched on. So he's 1.07 million. They got a couple of nice fixtures. Or Caleb Sarong. Where would you be going, Jordox?
Yeah, do like Anderson. He's just been a guy. He's always been a nilly guy, and then he'll let you down with a real lower score. Him or Sarong, I'd probably still err on the side of Sarong, but only just.
Yeah.
I've got a thought. Do we think that Noah Anderson scoring comes down as Sam Flanders goes up? And we see also Rioli go up at the same time as Noble, probably sitting at a high 80s, low 90s number.
And then
that's
Matt
where
Rao,
my questions lie with Gold Coast.
And then Matt Rao taking a bit more of maybe that outside ball for he's adding that. That's a good call. Yep. Maybe you go Sarong for the value and you can watch Noah Anderson, and maybe he's someone that you look at around the buys, or unless you're really, really keen. I know, obviously, good friend of the show, Joey DeCina, jumped on and not Noah Anderson a couple of weeks ago. So he was pretty keen. So something to watch. But yeah, there's a good point with that. A few other guys taking points. I guess Sam Flanders is probably a bit of a sneaky guy that you could have a look at. Liam, is Sam Flanders a little bit out of the price range defense? I think a few people probably might not have enough money for those top guys, which I think we've said that we wouldn't pay for them anyway. Noah Anderson, around the same price as a Jack Sinclair and the Siren and guys like that. Is any interest there?
I still think he's just got a little bit more cash to lose. I think he started
it's a bit early.
Really low. It's just a smidge early, coming off no preseason. I think that once he dips below that million mark and he's sitting at, say, the same price that Jordan Clark is this week, then it starts to become too tantalising an option not to look at more earnestly.
Yeah. Doc Holiday. G'day, gents. Got a question. Sanders up to Hewitt, Sarong, Neal, or Ashcroft? So, Jordox, obviously we mentioned Hewitt there. We probably wouldn't be going there at this stage, I don't think. So, well, if you had to pick one of the 4, though, where would you be going?
Probably Sarong again. Same as the last one.
Yeah. And if you want the cheaper guy, obviously Liam mentioned about Will Ashcroft before, and there's a slight chance he could even get forward status. So if you want to save cash, you could go there. But I like Sarong with the upcoming run there. I think if you're going to get Neal, I think last week was the good week to jump on with the Richmond matchup. But he's got Bulldogs this week, but then goes into St Kilda and Collingwood. And I believe Stylebottom has done a job on him in the past. And then you've also got Winhager. So that's a couple of tags coming there for a Lockie Neal. Josh Mack says Nod and Matt Roberts to Sarong and Bice with 100K in the bank. Liam, with Bice obviously looking fantastic, when Roberts obviously a lower score last week. I'm personally not panicking with Roberts, but what are your thoughts on trading a Roberts out to fund Nod up?
I don't know if Roberts is the player that is a number one trade-out priority at the moment. Yep, it was a down scoring week and Bice looked great. Bice scored a 60 the week before. I don't know if he's going to be scoring 120s every week. So on that basis, and wing defenders, so someone like a Bice who's sitting a little higher, that's an incredible matchup last week. I don't know if he's getting the same going forward. So I'm personally not trading out Matt Roberts at the moment and wouldn't be using him as the way to finance an upgrade on Nod.
Yeah. If you've got a Fraser and SDK, that's obviously the move. And if you don't have the cash for Sarong, obviously we've said before, there's a few guys a bit cheaper. You've got your Tarantos and your Will Ashcrofts a bit cheaper there. So maybe one the Fraser or SDK down would be the potential play. Jack, I'm one of those weirdos who still has Matt Flynn. I've got Cherry, but who would you be targeting? I've also got Nod and Fraser. So obviously I think Nod and Flynn are probably the guys that would go. I'd be going Nod to Bice if you don't have Bice, or Nod down, and I'd be going Flynn up. And I think Kieran Briggs is probably where I'd be going. Liam, is that where you'd be going with trades?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to be doing.
Sim Doherty at 750k value ? So Jordox, what are your thoughts about Doc? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk this week. I've heard on all of like SEN and Fox Footy and everything like that talking about Doc, and obviously a few, I guess, droppable efforts, and a few Carlton fans also saying the same thing. Could you be going Doherty at 750k, or are you looking at other options instead?
Oh, look, it's a good price. I'd definitely be looking if that's the the price range you're in. I don't think you're going to find much better than that. But I don't love it myself. I just have, I think there's lots of questions on Carlton as a whole. It's kind of hard to settle on any of their players with any confidence. And I just think with the fact that we've already seen him as a sub once, they're not really sure where to put him. And I don't know, 750. I would. I'm just trying to look at around that area, 750.
I trade in Marriage before I trade in Doc. I'm not touching a single Carlton player at the moment.
Except TDK, maybe, if Pitney's not there.
Yeah, I think, but even then, Michael Voss has shown himself to be someone who swings around the magnets in the second half, even when they're ahead, which confounds me no end. And his bench management is up there with Ross Lyon and Ken Hinkley for the worst in the competition. I have not seen many teams who are so frequently sitting with players with 9, 10, 11 minutes on the bench who are within their best 5 to 6 in any one game, because their communication is so poor that they can't find a way to have their players know, all right, we need to switch sides. I need to get across to another wing, another half-back flank, so that I can get on and off the ground, even if the ball's stuck on the other side. I do not like a single Carlton player at the moment. It's why Hewitt, great scoring. I just don't know how long it'll last. Sam Walsh, was great this past week. If you've got him already, I'm not trading him out, but I'm not looking to trade him in right now anyway, until they can start to find a way to win. And I really just don't trust Vossi to be the coach to do that at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Andrew's got this one. So you're asking about Cherry down to Darcy Cameron, but Jordox, what are our thoughts with, I think the more question here is, what are our thoughts with the Big X? Obviously, he's been a bit quiet last couple of weeks, a couple of trickier matchups as well. A few people talking about, obviously, the injury. He's looked to be moving fine enough last week. I think the tackles are down. I think he's only got like 2 tackles more combined in the first 4 games than what he had in that West Coast game in the preseason, which is quite funny there. Are we persisting with the Big X? Are you trading? Obviously, it's a bit harder this way, I guess, with Nod and Will Day and maybe a Rankin, who knows, with a few other issues like a Fraser. But if someone's in luxury position to maybe look at it, is Cherry even down to a Cameron or even like a Briggs or something you'd entertain, or are we just holding faith with Big X? It'll come good.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be the coach of a side who's in position to do it, because I think there'll be plenty other things that are more pressing. It's funny, when I saw his score Saturday night, I did wonder if maybe this week there's going to be a bit of sideways into Marshall, and then Marshall went worse. So Yeah, the rucks are really tricky. Gorn was underwhelming on Friday night. Now English got a decent score on the weekend, but he hasn't really popped this year yet. It's really kind of hard to pick who's going to be the man. And Tassie Cameron, look, he deserves all the credit in the world. I wouldn't be jumping ship to him. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much a sideways move, hey, from Cherry to Cameron. Who would have thought that? Now, I think you stick it out with Cherry until we learn more about any reasons why he's carrying that, if he's carrying an issue from that only last week. But I think you just have to ride it out now. And I think a big score's just around the corner. Up against English this week. Oh, no, he's not. He's up against, he's up against Wits.
Yeah, he's up against Witsy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what you said, Bales, if you're doing anything, it's down to Briggs and then using that cash to, to fund an upgrade elsewhere, but not sideways to DC.
Yeah, because you missed the scores from DC as well. He's been great, but yeah, maybe you're looking to get the cash there. MJ saying this about Sarong. So being the number one tag target question mark, has Sparrow, Windhager and Bedford coming up. So Liam, what do you think with Young coming back in hopefully this week? Do you think that changes things, or is that a bit of a worry for a Sarong?
I think so. Like, here's the thing: Sarong is the number one tag target, but he's a 1A, and there is a 1B, and with Jaiden Young coming back in, there's a pretty close second. So that's kind of why I think that, all right, yeah, he might be somewhat of a tag target, but I think going up against Fremantle, you're probably looking to shift it around a little bit. And this is something that, was it last year? Well, the year before, we were trying to flick around and figure out who the tag was going to go to amongst those Freo midfielders. I don't necessarily think he's the bona fide number one. He is more he's not Lockie Neal, who sits alone amongst the tag targets in his team. Yeah.
A few people saying my camera's frozen. I don't know if I'm frozen on your screen as well, but hopefully,
that's right. Yeah. We can still hear you though.
Yeah, cool. But I think we'll pretty much almost wrap up there. I think we've answered a heap of questions here. A few people obviously saying that, but we did answer a few of the players sort of in discussion earlier in the podcast. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that, then feel free. I think the last one we haven't touched on him yet, so I'll just finish off with this one from DWH. Jack Sinclair. What are our thoughts, Liam, on bringing him in? Obviously, he's had an amazing start to the year. He's obviously number one in the coaches' vote so far and has been a very good pick for those that jumped on, particularly after that Richmond game. He's a bit more expensive now, though. Could you still go there? Is he a little bit of value, or do you think that he's fairly priced or maybe slightly overs that you'd be looking at other options?
I still think he's a smidgen of value for someone who could very comfortably finish top 3 for defenders. He's not as much value as I'd always like to stomach, but I don't hate going there. He's probably the most expensive defender I'd be willing to say still has some value.
Yeah. Henry Pope saying, did you already talk about Finn O'Sullivan? No, we didn't talk about Finn O'Sullivan, but I think he's probably down to low priority for a lot of people this week. And I still think you're holding. I think if you can get a good score this week or next week, he's still got cash to make. He's under 400K. You're probably not going to be able to go him to someone and really do anything on the other end. So I think I'd just be persisting with Finn O'Sullivan. Plus, he gets defender status next. Exactly. Gets defender status next week. That could maybe unlock a bit of structural things if you didn't have a prior or something like that. So, but yeah, appreciate the question there, Henry. But we will wrap up there. Appreciate everyone that sent through all of their questions. Apologies if we didn't get to your question. There were a lot of questions coming through tonight. But if you'd like your question answered, then you can head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. I'm doing a Patreon exclusive Q&A tomorrow afternoon. So if you would like your questions answered there, then head over there. And you get the Ask Me on Q service for free as a Patreon. Or if you'd like to use the Ask Me on Q service, then head to askmeonq, spelled QU.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics for a personalised audio response for any of your AFL Fantasy questions, including team reviews, trade questions, any questions you guys have, you can head over there. But unfortunately, we will not be live on Friday for our pre-lockout chat. Obviously, I will be with a few of the legends, obviously Jordox and Guesty, with the Hat Chat boys at the Black Bull. So if you want to come say hi, then feel free to come say hi to us. It'd be good to chat to a heap of you guys there if you guys are in Adelaide for Gather Round. But we will be recording our pod on Monday instead, obviously, with the later game on the Sunday. We'll record our pod on the Monday there. So, but Liam, before we sort of go around the socials, what are you currently looking at with your trades this week?
Yeah, look, I am doing Joel Fraser down to Bice Baby and then taking Nathan O'Driscoll up to one of Caleb Sarong or Will Ashcroft.
Yeah, I like it. Bice Baby. I like that one. Definitely not one I've heard this week. I've heard the Miami Bice and Bice in the veins, but I like the Bice Baby. I love your work, Liam. Jordox, what are you looking at doing with your trades this week?
Yes, good question. I have got Benny Hobbs still in my side, and I would.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Probably best round for you was when he was on the bye, so no surprise there.
Oh, well, I thought. Anyway, we can talk about that another time. So he'll go down to Cleary, and they'll give me a little bit of cash, and then I'd be pretty happy to boot Connor Stone. He's starting to give me the shits. He's got this plum roll in the back line, and he scores 28 in a game. His side won by 80 points. Anyway, he's only a kid, so calm down, Jordan.
He'll get defender status next week if you want to hold.
Nah, I don't.
And Louis made a good point. If he gets defender status, defender forward, if he's not playing, could be a handy Louis. But anyway.
Well, there's other guys, like even Kako. I know he's playing well, but he's someone I could cull. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going because I don't have a lot of cash. So could be Marek. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But definitely Hobbs to Cleary as a starting point.
Yeah. I like the Marek pick if you can get to him. My trades, much to Liam's impatience, but also probably happiness that I'm finally doing it. Taylor is gone, and Riley Bice will come in. Should have done that trade last week, but is better late than never, as they always say. So that is done. That is the easiest trade I or most people ever make ever in AFL Fantasy. Taylor to Bice, and then Driscoll will be going. So Fraser stays for the week. But O'Driscoll goes up, and I can afford pretty much almost any mid that I would like, but I think I'm going to settle on Andrew Brayshaw with the good matchup this week, and he will be in the mix potentially as a C on the Sunday. So I like him, but also do like Taranto if I wanted to go there. But I was going to go Wicks to Taranto before the nod news. But beautiful. Liam, very much appreciate you jumping on, mate. Always a pleasure talking AFL Fantasy with you. Where can the people find you across the socials? And because we won't chat to listeners beforehand, any final thoughts ahead of Gather Round 5 and heading back into Best 22?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Liam AFLW Fantasy. This week, I am trying to tell people what is plain and obvious to see, which is the fact that Sam Darcy is better than Nick Dacos. And in terms of things to remember for kind of, going back to Best 22, now is the time to get a sense of, run a bit of an audit on your team. Who are players that you want to have out by the time we get to the start of mid-season buys? Give yourself a target for upgrade cadence. How many mistakes trades can you make? How many short-term plays can you make? And keep yourself accountable to it.
Yeah, beautiful. Very, very good words there. Jordox, mate, where can the people find you, and any final thoughts from you?
So I'm on X at Jordox 2020. I think Liam covered it pretty well there. We're back to the 22 now, so no more hiding. This is when the big boys come out to play, and girls for that matter. So, just enjoy it. Enjoy Gather Round. It's going to be good fun. I can't wait. And if you play in a keeper league or a dynasty league, have you checked out my new podcast, Finders Keepers? So we had our round 4 episode came out this morning, going over all the players and the things that we see in terms of trends and role changes. So it's a bit of fun, and you can find the page on X at FindKeepAFL as well. Yeah,
make sure you go and check it out, and also make sure you do follow and turn notifications on for at AFL subs, so you don't miss who any the subs are or late change or anything. Obviously, Jordox and Eloise doing great work there, so make sure you guys follow that. And it as I said, turn notifications on. It's fantastic. Don't have to open any app or anything. You get notified who it is, and you're all set. So make sure you guys do that. You can find me at BAILSDT, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter. As I said before, and if anyone missed it, we won't be back on Friday, obviously at Gather Round, but hopefully see a heap of your legends there. We'll be back on Monday with our round review. And enjoy it. Get your team set. And as Liam said, go over your team and see what structure you like and try and get that in order and continue to do those upgrades and get rid of the players that I guess are going to be issues for you moving forward if you can. This week with obviously a few guys already ruled out. But if you did enjoy the video, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate you guys as well very much. And make sure you guys, if you can, please, there was a 5-star rating and review. It takes 30 seconds of your time, and it really does help us out a heap here. So that would be also very much appreciated. Good luck this week in round 5. Enjoy the footy, enjoy Gather Round, and we'll catch you guys on Monday for our round review. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy the week. See ya.
See ya.